Alright, skipping ahead, Chapter 20 on the job training reports of interview statements, witness digital files. Chapter 20 reported the interview statement of the witness digital files. Overview the section regarding the evidence, such as the FRA report of the interview. The FRA statement of the witness shall be considered for the amendment of the guidance for the found in the FRA's general manual, general technical bulletins, other guidance documents, operational practice, inspective. Often rely upon statements from employees, witnesses, passengers as basis for the enforcement actions of the disciplinary are available to prove the elements for the violation. Direct observation, first-hand knowledge is always preferable to the statement of the witness rather than the reports of the interview. The documentation of the violation. The records are sufficient to prove the violation that it is permissible to use the report of the interview in lieu of the statement of the witness and ancillary data to explain circumstances. Historically, that has been the case in the violation report, citing the violation of the hours of the service law, where the required hours of the duty record are prepared with complete detail with all entries and if they're incorrect entries, if the entry conflict the facts of the violation, then the statement of the witness or report of the interview, which must be used in sustaining the reason that the record is incorrect. Interviewing. The process of communicating with at least one of the person for the purpose of securing information interviewing requires that the inspector to be a good listener. Inspectors should be planning with the question that they're going to ask for them during the interview, but avoid reading them directly from their notes. Feel free to expand beyond the questions that you have prepared. Inspectors should also prepare the interview for familiarization themselves with any of the files documented involved. First-hand knowledge and guidance. The first-hand knowledge and is knowledgeable of something the inspector personally witnessed. If an inspector does not have the first-hand knowledge of the element of the violation, the element must be supported with someone else's first-hand knowledge contained with the other evidence, report of the interview, statement of the witness, other supporting documentation, reports of the interview. Inspectors should not summarize the information regarding an event that they do not have first-hand knowledge about. With the handle of the report of the interview, with the statement of the witness, report of the interview may be used only if and the contains the statement of the railroad manager. The statement contained with the report of the interview is sustained by the additional evidence. The report of the interview is validated in accordance with the FRA policy. Validation of the report of the interview. Public law specifically Federal 49 U.S. Standard Code 2109 prohibits the FRA from disclosing the identity of the employee of the railroad who has reported its railroad safety with security violation, including a violation of hazardous material laws, regulation, order without written consent with the employee. Consequently, when a report of the interview is used, the inspector must ensure that the inspection report, violation report, any attachments, including the report of the interview, do not contain the language that provided with the confidentially to the FRA. Inspector should validate the person that interviewed agrees with the information, but the report interview may be provided to the public, including the railroad effect. This can be done by the asking the person interviewed by the validated accuracy in the report of the interview, documentation of the validation, providing the time, the date of the interview, the full name, title, and the mailing address of the person who was interviewed. The situation where the employees refuse to validate the report of the interview should be discussed with the FRA regional manager so that the other methods can be explored that will be validated with the report of the interview. In order to protect the identity of the person provided with the FRA sensitive information, it is common for the report of the interview will be removed from any of the report unless it has been validated in accordance with the FRA policy. Checklist for the report of interview. Advise the person that the interview is voluntary. Advise the person that the report of the interview will be attached to the public report, perhaps submitted with the railroad company, and request that the person interviewed validate the report prior to the submission. Provide the time and date, the full name, title, and the mailing address of the person who validated the information over the report of the interview. Example, the report, interview name, the address, city, phone, and optional occupation, date of the interview, place of the interview, other presence, and interviewed by. Alright, Mr. Johnny has an interview on Friday, March 30th, 2009. Nebraska Yard Office. The purpose of the interview was exertion of Mr. Johnny's first-hand knowledge of the conditions aboard with the train 810 on March 8th, 2009. At the time of the incident, under the investigation, Mr. Johnny was working with the conductor of the Nebraska train to 810 when the 8010 when Johnny began his railroad career in 1978 as a bridge and building employee of the Nebraska 91 and has transferred to the train service and was promoted to the conductor in 1999. Mr. Johnny stated that he was late working for the regular assignment on March 8, 2009. He said that just prior to departing Lincoln, he was informed that the train 808 had been canceled and the crew from the train would be joining his crew at 199th Street Landing Park Station. Mr. Johnny said that the additional train of the 808 crews there was 5 train services employees aboard with the train 810. He assigned the crew members throughout all the train in an effort to close the monitor load of the passengers. Mr. Johnny signed that the train filled up. The contacted train master Turner Gill and informed her heavy passenger volume. Mr. Johnny said he was told that the train master Gill to be to invest in the kid he could to accommodate the passengers when the train departed with the Ravenna station. Mr. Johnny said for the first 2 coaches were standing room only. He said people were standing closely together, but they were not packed in like sardines. Mr. Johnny said during the 8010 trip, he and other crew members informed the encouraged passengers to wait for the next train. He said that the few passengers sat up with the train. However, the passenger continued with the board at every station. Mr. Johnny said by this time they reached the now Bruges station. He was unable to walk through the passenger cars. At this point, the instructed the other crew members to close the train doors individually to avoid catching someone in the door as it closed. Mr. Zanni, so he counted the number of the passengers when the train arrived at the Lions Union Station. He said he could not remember the exact number, but he thought they were between 1,000 and 2,000 passengers. He said about 6 to 8 people commented to him through the train was overcrowded and they felt it was a safety hazard. Mr. Zanni said he was not aware of any of the railroad company's safety rules, standard operating procedure, written instruction that provide guidance for the train crews when an overcrowding situation occurs. Mr. Jennings was informed of the contents of the report of 1104 and the insertion date by reading the report of the interview to him. Mr. Jennings agreed to its contents. Mr. Jennings' contact information, Universal Railroad 123 Fort Main Street, blah, 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 blah. Report to inventory interview. How many more of these? Alright, 372. Example report of the interview. Mr. Jennings was interviewed on Thursday, March 29, 2009, with the dog yard for the purpose of the interview. The association, Mr. Jennings' first-hand knowledge of the alleged exceeding for the hours of service was assigned to the train 810 with March 8, 2009. At the time of the incident, Mr. Jennings was working as the conductor of the Nebraska train 810 when Mr. Jennings began his railroad career in 1978. The brigade with the building of the employed in Nebraska. In 1991, he was transferred to the train service to promote as conductor. Mr. Jennings stated that he was working the regular assignment of March 8, 2009. He stated they was just stopped with the train for Lincoln. He was informed that the dispatch for the train 808 had proceeded with the process past the train and his crew should exceed the hours of service to proceed off the main track into the siding post, milepost of 56, to allow the train 808 to proceed. Mr. Johnny said the proceeding to exceeding the hours of the service of 45 minutes, moving his then train into the siding, securing it is instructed by the dispatcher, Eric Crotch. Mr. Johnny was informed of the contents of the report 1104 to insert the date by reading the report of the interview to him. Mr. Johnny agreed to its contents. Mr. Johnny's contact information. Alright, statements of witnesses to ensure the FRA complies with the public law of the prohibition prohibits any officials from disclosing the identity of the railroad employees who have reported the railroad safety violation without their written consent. The FRA statements the witnesses use to see the blank of the form at the end of the chapter. The statement of the witness will validate that the individual has acknowledged that the information he or she has provided with the inspector looks likely to become the information. The statement of the witness also has potential perjury. The individual signing for the statement of the witness, perhaps holding them accountable for any false information provided to the FRA to sign the statement of the witness. Checklist for the statement of the witness. The statement of the witness are not required to be a verbatim. The inspector should be captured the information but closely paralleling the language used by the person being interviewed, but it does not necessarily have to be documented word for word. Preparing the report, member that it should be clear to the reader, which requires the proper sentence structure. Make sure all the pertinent information is included in the narrative statement of the witness, e.g., dates, train identification numbers, symbols, titles to location, car numbers, names, clarification, jargon, and slang. Ensure the accuracy of the information regarding the dates and train, symbols, titles, equipment, and or slang. Statement of the witness must contain the time and the date, full name, the title, mailing, the address of the person interviewed so that they may be contacted by the FRA if required. Responses to the statement of witnesses. Inspectors should always be provided with the railroad with any opportunity to respond with the statement of witness. Always include the response of the violation report. If the statement of the witness is an accusation, it will be likely necessary to provide the FRA office with the chief counsel with the railroad individual response to the acquisition incident. Do not nearly provide a written witness report without the railroad individuals involved providing their side of the incident. This can be reported the interview any other statement of the witness. Inspectors notice the FRA office the chief counsel has found. The inspectors notice that an audited team close out the documents can be extremely useful when reviewing settling violations. Often these documented details inspector investigation findings provide additional insight into the violation. However, these documents should not be attached to the violation reports as evidence. Rather than documents should be uploaded and attached to the FRA's copy of the violation reports only. On-the-job training, the FRA Railroad Safety Technical Training Standards Division (TTSD) is charged with developing standard operational practice of the on-the-job training manual. The standard found in the manual required the current inspector to observe the newly hired operational practice inspector performing the on-the-job task record these tasks. The completed the newly hired inspector must then provide validation of those completed tasks in the Technical Training Standard Division, so that they can be recorded. The on-the-job training requires newly hired inspector. The inspector provided with the training to follow the task conditions of the standards of operation and training on-the-job training manual. The duties, tasks, conditions, standards identified with the on-the-job training manual should be strictly valid regarding the training of the newly hired operational inspector. The duly identified with the on-the-job manual also provides the training inspector with the specific minimum number of the demonstrations that newly hired operational practice inspectors will require prior to the attempting to perform the duty of their own without the aid of an inspector when demonstrating the duty. Newly hired operational practice inspectors of the on-the-job training. Newly hired operating practice inspectors should, whether the state or the federal, will not be allowed to perform any of the inspection of their own without the first time completing with the on-the-job training. With the on-the-job training program has completed, newly hired inspector will provide a formal memo from the respective regional administrator. Newly hired operational practice inspector, under specific conditions, can be authorized to perform inspection of their own proper prior to completing with the on-the-job training. The inspection will require the specific instruction for the regional operational specialist job of the on-the-job training scheduling. In addition, with the completed task regarding the inspection authorized to perform on the duty their own must record as completed with the FRA operational headquarters to staff. And the newly hired inspectors are required to provide with the training technique standards validation for each of the tasks completed. In addition, the new hired inspection required to contact the TTDS or with the Technical Training Standards Division validation form for each of the tasks completed. In addition, the new hired inspector is required to contact the training technique standard at least once a week, regardless if any of the tasks are completed on the job until the on-job is completed. This will also include the reviewing of newly hired inspectors' records on file to ensure the accuracy and consistency. The inspector provided with the field training over the on-job, the inspector provided with the newly hired on the operating job practice inspector training must provide with the guidance necessary as required in the operational job on the job training manual. This includes adhering to the condition each of the duty prior to requiring the new hired inspector to perform the task that standardized noting in each task. Providing presentation at the union meetings, the FRA will track data regarding the agency's operational practice inspectors attending the railroad union meetings. Operational practice inspectors should file a representation form similar to the sample provided with the next page, provided with completed for the form of the FRA regional headquarters. FRA operational inspectors should not normally complete any inspection for report attending any of the union meeting. For attending any union meeting, inspection reports regarding attending the union meeting should be cleared through the regional operational specialist prior to providing the railroad a copy of the inspection report. This is a Federal Railroad Administration Training Presentation Report. And this is blank. And data files, electronic violation packages, the FRA migration toward the use of the electronic violation package. Please reference for the FRA General Manual for further guidance. This page is left blank, and a Federal Railroad Statement of the Witness, which I'll